Welcome back. This is Daybreak, and thanks for staying with us. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. Wanjiku Thiga is the national youth leader, the DCP party. Good morning.
Good morning.
Much appreciated. Many thanks for your company. Faith Ken is youth advocate. She is here with us in the studio as well. Good morning.
Good morning.
Victor Kiprono is the chief executive officer of the Zero Barefoot campaign. Good morning. Good morning. Much appreciated. Dr. Derek Barasa is the secretary political affairs, the Kenya African National Union Party, KANU. Good morning.
Good morning.
Abdelaziz Mohammed is youth leader and politician from Langata constituency. Good morning.
Good morning.
As well as Elijah Sawe, who advocates for youth affairs in the country. Good morning.
Good morning.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for your time and much appreciated for your company and the beautiful young voices of Kenyans who you do represent here. First, beginning with you, Wanjiku, the president on Wednesday issued what was much awaited by Kenya's young, given the brunt that they bore in the aftermath, during and the aftermath of June 25th events. What was the reception on the part of young Kenyans, given what happened to the 60 who were killed, more than 1,000 who were injured, and the men who are still missing to their families? How was that received within the quarters of young Kenyans?
Thank you for that question. Allow me to start by mourning Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o. I mourn him today because he really contributed to my journey in political experience. Running for office in 2022 was a daunting task. It was really heavy. And his book, A Grain of Wheat, is the book that gave me hope and sojourned with me, because politics is hard, and reading about the challenges that Mau Mau went through as they fought for independence reminded me why I have to keep going. And now to come back to your question, I will say this was such a late task that the president took, because we expected him to do a public acknowledgement and an apology very early, last year in fact. But it came very late, and it came with ifs. And when you say if, then you're not publicly acknowledging. You see there was nothing wrong it did, you're not acknowledging what happened, what this regime did to its young people. Therefore, it is in bad taste. I will say, what are the actions that the president said consequently after his apology? Mm-hmm. We expected to see reconciliatory measures because young people are demanding justice. The families that lost its people demand justice. We want to see police reforms, legislative reforms. Mm-hmm. We also want to see maybe he would have even put up a constitutional inquiry. You know, we see measures that are being taken to take into action what happened. We also wanted to see what is this? Wanted to see that they'll go to hospitals, look at the young people that were injured, visit the families, bring them to maybe State House or somewhere where they can sit and have conversation, because conflict resolution has to happen. Transitional justice actions must happen. So they have also to compensate families of you know, where maybe young people are still in hospitals. Okay. Let's take care of them. But we didn't see these actions. So was it really in good faith? Because he just said some words and that was it. Okay. But it has to be followed by actions. Okay. Yeah.
And Barasa, then how can this be translated into justice beyond those who are inflicted with the injuries that they sustained to their families? Because it's a representation of the Kenyan society. What then happens to the families who some still have missing kin, and the government says, acknowledges they are not in their custody?
Many thanks, Ayub. You see, the events that happened this week by the president are mischievous in a way. You see, I'm a Christian, and when you read the Bible, there's the book of Ecclesiastes in around chapter 5, verse 4 to 6. It tells us not to make promises in vain. The president clearly came up and made a promise in vain. We know that he did not mean any inch of the things that he said on that very day. Second of all, our constitution, the first line in our constitution, which was promulgated on the 27th of August, 2010, says, we, the people of Kenya, believing in the sovereignty of the God of all creations, do believe that we shall enact this constitution. The president, in the same way, butchered the Constitution when he made that very surreptitious apology. But that's not the issue today. Let me discuss the content of the apology that he made. You see, this is not the first time. We saw it in the Gen Z last year. The president has come up with a paternalistic kind of, it is a power dynamic meant to comb young people, yeah, in a way as he prepares for the next events in his kind of pseudo-democracy. You see, what the president has always done is to infantilize the younger generation and to make us feel like we are his children. In any way, Ayub, if I ask you, who is a child? Nani mtoto? His statement was, our children, in case, if he called us children. You see, if clearly he came up and understood and threw away the condescending nature of his apology and looked at us as shareholders in this government, as people that are not just recipients of this kind of democracy in Kenya, that he gets to understand that we are very mature, we are competent enough to run this country. And he leveled that engagement with us at that level and decided to discuss with us at that particular level. That would have been a sober promise. You see...
But he did engage you guys on July the 5th. And he convened an online meeting. Young Kenyans joined. They vented their frustrations at him. He listened. He sat through the meeting. In fact, he cancelled other engagements. Now he has apologized. If this isn't enough, what then is enough on your part that will satisfy the needs of young Kenyans? You
see, there's a difference between a symbolic action and a substantive action. What the president has been doing ever since June 25th last year has been a series of symbolic actions to show that he is aware of what is happening. But the real substance, which must be done based on concrete policy, behavioral change, and real reparative justice, we have not seen those things happening. Rex Masai and many others died. How many people were abducted last year? Between June and October, over 80 people were abducted. But up to now, we've never seen any reparative action by the president and the people around him to go and address those key concerns. What we continue to see are knee-jerk reactions by a government that is very uncertain about the next election, trying to circumvent around the next generation so that they can build an empire around us. However, as young people, we're going to make it clear. You see, this whole lackluster behavior and conditional promises by the president shall not come to fruit. You see, let me also say, nail this. You see, as I land, you see the president, in his statement, and I know many people have discussed this, the if nature of that apology. That actually goes to show us the body and substance, the matter behind that promise. You see, if it's a conditional clause,
yes.
If I say, let me use this. If Arsenal wins the Champions League.
It's a possibility.
It's a possibility, but we've waited for this for a long time. Arsenal has not won the Champions League. If the president, when the president comes up to say if, that is an ambiguous clause. What we want to see is an unequivocal promise. A promise that I am going to apologize. I am going to build reparative justice for those people who were affected by these actions since June 25th last year. You see, and remember, allow
me to bring, you'll proceed.
Let me just, it took a whole motivational speaker.
We have enough time to get through all this. Allow me to get the voices as well of the others who are here on the set. Victor, in your view, was that enough on the part of young Kenyans?
Thank you, Hayub, for this opportunity. I think the president has done more than enough in trying to reconcile the country. And I want to thank the head of state that in the context, actually, of the apology was it was actually a prayer breakfast where the country comes together, we pray together, and we do the healing process of a nation. And the president did apologize. I am saddened by the panelists who are saying that the president thought or utter oath to have done miracles. When you do an apology,
Miracle.
The president is not a miracle worker. Mm-hmm. You cannot do an apology, immediately go to hospitals, visit the families. You first apologize to the country. And the president said, if there is any mistake, and if there were anything, we apologize as a country.
There were mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Now, and again, now I want to make it clear that the president is the father of the nation. My panelist is saying, if we are the children of the president, in fact, the president is the head of state and the father figure of the country. And he apologized in that context as the father of the nation. So then, therefore, it means the young generation and the Gen Zs for that matter will therefore, in the same spirit of apology and consensus, will therefore say, well, the president has apologized. What is the next step further? Is for engagement build on that background that the president has laid. Let us come together as a country. Let us unite. Let us now form conventions of peace and unity. But if the president apologizes today and you come out and say, oh, the president ought to do this, ought to have done this, I mean, for heaven's sake, let's give the president a break. Because again, this is a person who invited the same agencies on an online platform for talks. The same people said, we are faceless. Yeah. Now the president comes out, he apologizes. The same people are going out, that is not an apology. Give me a definition of an apology. Okay,
we'll talk more about the substance of it, because what then happens to the families of the 60 who were killed?
Talking about abductions, and my panelists have said about
we'll come to the abduction
now
part.
We've known who are the real planners and orchestrators of abduction.
Okay, we'll talk at length more about that, but more important here is that 60 young lives were cut short, and more than 1,100 had sustained gunshot. Yes, Angon Victor, will prosecute all this in an open manner and substantively talk about what then is in the best interest of our country. All right? Allow me also to bring in the others so that we have an hour and 15 minutes to go before we summarize all this. Yes, Abdul, to you. I'll come to you, Faith. Yes, please.
And to begin with, I am a Muslim, and I believe in the power of forgiveness. I also know that forgiveness is the only antibiotic that does not have a side effects. But the president's apology is what I would call an empty apology. Why? Because well-intended apologies are not conditional. You don't begin with an if, and if at all. And we don't need the president to apologize. Our forgiveness would have come automatically if he brought to book the perpetrators of torture, abduction, and extrajudicial killings of Kenyans. That is what he ought to have done, and our forgiveness would have come automatically. We would have understood him. And I want to urge my brother here, Victor Kiprono, just for today, to respect the lapel I am wearing here that stands for humanity. If at all you don't respect the people of Kenya, please just respect this lapel. Putting on this, seated here today, I stand for humanity. And you know, we cannot mock the families that lost over 60 people. Thank you very much.
Okay, yes, Faith.
Thank you so much, Ayub. And on my side, what I would like to say is that first, I acknowledge that lives were lost. It was a bad thing that in a democratic country, something like that will actually happen. And the young people on the street fighting for their rights, and they had their agendas, but it's a very bad thing that it had to end that way. But now the president coming out to apologize, I think it's a good thing. And even if you go back to 2024, since the time after the Gen Z demonstration, what has the president done since then? You know, just like he said, the Gen Zs are the first people to say they're faceless. The president went faceless and talked to them on Twitter. You know, they said they're leaderless. How are they going to be engaged if they don't have a leader? You know, they said they're tribeless. And even when the broad-based was formed, the 10 points agenda, reduction is included there, you know, and compensation of families that lost their kins. It's in the 10 points agenda of broad-based government. So I think the president has done a lot, and just coming out to apologize. We demanded that youths be included in this cabinet. We are the same people that are fighting when youths are there. We have the Ministry of Youth Affairs, Fikirini Jacobs as PS. You see, we have in the Ministry of the engineer. He's 34 years old. He's a youth. But we are the same people who are still who are still saying, you know, we haven't done enough. So it's like we wanted the specific type of people that we wanted to be appointed. Yet we're the same people who couldn't even front those who could represent us. So I think where the situation where we are at a country with the youths is that we've become so negative. We're criticizing everything, that anything that comes from the president or anything that comes from the government must be criticized. Even if it's a good thing, it must be looked into an angle that it might have to spike a negative reaction. So the president coming out on a national prayer day to say, I'm sorry, I think that is just enough. Okay. And what we should demand for right now is, after sorry, what next? And how are you showing that you're sorry?
Okay.
You know, but you must first accept the apology, then what next? You see, from there, that is when we can say, you know, you said you're sorry, but why are your actions not telling that you're actually sorry?
Okay. Elijah, Faith argues that what the president said and he has done so far is enough. But what's enough to the families of those who lost their kin?
Thank you, Ayub. So first, I think we should all appreciate that it's a fact that on June 25th and 26th, there was a lot of uprising in this country, and it was unprecedented. We had never seen such an organic, unprecedented self-awareness of youths, and actually youths coming out beyond tribal and political lines to express themselves. It was a momentous occasion for our country and our democracy. And I think we also have to appreciate the fact that there are people who were killed, extrajudicial killings, and it is wrong. How I look at this is we must accept that there were mistakes that were done. But let's look at the man, the president. We've had 4 presidents before him. And I think this is the second time we've had a president apologizing, and not once. I remember President Moi, where Dr. Baraza's party is based, that is KANU, apologized once when he was leaving, and he said, kama kuna mtu nimemkosea naomba msamaha. President, we never had any apology from President Kibaki when we had the most severe killings in 2007, 2008. Uhuru Kenyatta, when the judiciary, when he stood and spoke about the judiciary and clearly said he will revisit, he never went back and made any apology. We've seen the first time a president who comes in human face and takes responsibility of what the government did and actually apologizes. So for me, that is a good step to our democracy. But that is not the point.
But Elijah, context matters here.
Yeah.
The events in the aftermath of the 2007-8 post-election skirmishes were subjected to a tribunal outside Kenya, where our current president and his predecessor, among 6 other Kenyans, were charged with crimes against humanity for what has happened in 2007. Then what's the correlation between what then ended up at the ICC and the apology issued by President William Ruto to the Gen Z?
I think I don't want to go back to that history, Ayub, because when you look at that history, there are so many political connotations around it. There are people who even argue that in 2007, we should have the presidential candidates actually being part of the people who were charged, but other people took political responsibility because of that. But I don't want to talk about it because that is a matter that went all the way to the ICC, and it was fully pronounced, and I don't want to go back to that. But I know what really takes you back to that is the spirit of those actions. I think how I look at it is the president has continuously showed us that we can actually have leaders who are ready to own up on the mistakes that they've done and ready to make policies that takes us forward. Why I'm saying this is because what next to the 60 people or the 60 lives that were lost? We've seen the change in the IG. The Inspector General of Police, who was there when this happened, is no longer the Inspector General. We've seen a number of people who've been charged because of that. We've seen the necessary steps that were taken. The President opened up a platform for youths to talk to him. We've seen changes in youths being put on the table, being appointed as PSs and all that. So I think it is okay to really go back and vilify people because of the mistakes that have happened before, but as a country we must move forward. We have to move.
How many police officers are on trial for the 60 killings, other than the case of Rex Masai, who was one of the first casualties, fell by bullet, and that trial ongoing, given its prominence? How many more police officers are on trial, given the other lives that were lost? Because one life lost is too many.
True. at least even so far we know, because that is the one that has been publicized, but I know for sure we've seen so many. Personally, where I come from in Nandi Hills, I know a police officer who lost his job because of issues to do with that demonstration. It was never publicized, but the matter was handled by the police oversight, and he lost his job. Probably we need to go back and check all the statistics, which I should be able to go back and check for you, but I can assure you there are people who've lost jobs, and figuratively, we've even gone ahead and seen the IG of police being changed because of those...
The bar can't be this low that we just have... We haven't seen IPOA's report. We haven't seen any police, and we have that. The evidence is very clear, even just using what is public with us, what is accessible with all of us. We saw the police officers that killed young people on the BBC documentary. These police officers are still roaming free. The bar can't be this low that we can sit here and justify in a country that of a median age of 19 years. We sit here to be proud and say we only have 2 young people at the helm of leadership. We can't be this, we can't do this, we can't accept that this country, 60 young people died, and we say, so the president just did a public apology, and he did not follow up with actions. It took him 1 year. He would have come up, he's a president. And one thing about this country is that we have a crisis of accountability. The president gave a sorry excuse of apology, but he did not follow up with any actions. I wish he even said, we're going to, one of the first action I'm going to take is let's have a national memorial of those more than 60 lives that were lost. Let's sit down and just have a memorial. Let's have a national reflection of what really happened. Okay. Because we sweep these things under the carpet, and young people continue feeling ignored.
Okay. Ayub, if you allow me,
abductions are continuing as we speak.
We have 1 hour and 2 minutes. Still there's time. So allow me to also get the audience watching from home here. Is what you're saying on X. Our handle is @Citizen TV Kenya, @Ayub Abdikadir. The hashtag is Citizen TV Kenya. And Babu Michael says, how do we talk of a prayer breakfast when numerous Kenyan families from June last year up to this time are still searching for their loved ones? Some were killed by the bullet with no justice till now. Honestly, are we really seriously praying? Jaconim says, apology must entail arrest of the officers who killed Gen Zs as captured in the Blood Parliament documentary. Public acknowledgement of the wrongs that were done by mentioning the wrong. What was issued was blanket apology, which is inconsequential. Kiprono Abraham one says, we are in a representative democracy, and therefore the words of the president were not made by the person of William Ruto. They were made by the president, which means the people of Kenya rendered an apology to themselves. And Roman DJ says that apology doesn't mean anything to us. After 10 months is when you think of an apology. Sorry won't bring back our fallen youth. So many will be coming and will sample in the course of this broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. And when we get back, I'll begin with Victor. Come to you, Abdi, Faith, and Derek. I know all of you have been waiting to come in. As we expound more on that, on whether the political class that gathered there needs more prayers than members of the public, and where the responsibility also lies on the part of you, the voters, in electing the very same people because they are cut from the Kenyan cloth. We are back with more after the break here on the broadcast. Stay tuned.